There are many things that we don't have to worry about. God will take care of them, but we don't trust him. So we take care of it ourselves. I heard somebody talking about revenge, and I didn't hear the whole conversation. But you don't have to get revenge. God will do it. God, if you think there's really a God, if you don't think there's really God, I'm not clear why you're here, because it's kind of early in the morning, and you should be ready to watch the Milwaukee Bucks game. But if you're here, you kind of say you believe there's a God. And so we need to trust that he sees everything that's going on. He's not going to let anybody get away with anything. He's got a plan. We just don't know what the plan is. Our plan to get back at somebody or to take care of something is not going to work. So we're going to zip through this. So when Paul's sister's son heard the ambush, he went and entered the barracks and he told Paul. Verse 17.
Then Paul called one of the centurions to him and said, "Take this young man to the commander, for he has something to tell him."
So he went to the commander and told the Roman commander, here's what's all going on, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, now let's look at Psalms chapter 2, verse 2 through 4.
The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, "Let us break their bonds in pieces and cast away their cords from us."
So the rulers of this earth take counsel together against what are the two people mentioned? Against
Paul.
No, what does the verse say? I'm not asking you to guess. Against
The Lord.
the Lord and against
The
his anointed. So we are God's anointed now because we represent Christ. He says they're really planning against the Lord and against his anointed. So they come against Christians, they come against people that God has called. If you are where God has called you to be, if God has sent you somewhere, then they can make plans against you, but they won't win. If you are somewhere where you're not supposed to be, you are no longer under God's anointing. Does that make sense? So if somebody's authorized you to go, here's $20, go over there, but instead you take your $20 and go over there, then when you get in trouble, that person can't help you because you weren't where you're supposed to be. But if you're doing what God told you to do, you're where he told you to go, then he's protecting you. You don't have to worry about it. So he says the rulers of this earth will make their plans against God and against God's anointed. Here's how God answers. Verse 4.
He who sits in the heavens shall laugh.
Go on.
Okay, the Lord shall hold them in
In derision. That means it's hysterical to God that they're trying to make plans. You've heard the phrase, man makes his plans and then God laughs. This is where they got it from. They're not making that up. Derision means that's hysterical. He's just holding them in like, very ridiculous.
Okay.
Because people make their plans, and we do that. We have everything all planned out. Okay, I'm gonna go here, go there, I'm gonna get some of this, I'm gonna do this, and this person goes, and God's like, psst, that's not what's gonna happen. We could consult God and ask him, where should I go, Lord? Or we can just make a whole bunch of plans and it never works out that way. You got it all worked out to the T. Okay, I'll leave it. Exactly 10:05, and you get on the freeway, and there's been an accident, and you're like, God knew all about that. That's why he was telling you to leave an hour early, but you thought, why should I leave early? It doesn't make no sense. I'm gonna get there early. God knew there was gonna be a traffic jam, but we don't consult him. We don't consult him. Okay, so he says, people will make their plans and God will laugh and have them in derision. Isaiah chapter 8, verse 12 through 13.
Do not say a conspiracy concerning all that this people call a conspiracy, nor be afraid of their threats, nor be troubled. The Lord of hosts, him and you shall follow.
You shall hallow, I mean you shall
hallow,
declare that
worship.
he's holy.
Let him be your fear, and let him be your dread.
So, do not worry about a conspiracy when people come against you. Oh no, a conspiracy. Oh no, they're all trying to attack me. Oh no, my boss said this. My fellow employer, he's trying to, the student that I'm with, those people in that other club, they're trying to come against. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. If you need to be afraid of anybody, be afraid of God. Be afraid of going against him. For some reason, he's the person we're not that afraid of. We know what we're supposed to do, but we think, oh, well, God's asleep right now, or God's ignoring me, so we go ahead and do this, and we do that. And we know, and he says, don't be afraid of people. If you're going to be afraid of somebody messing up your plans, be afraid of God. And be, say, uh-oh, I don't want to go against God. That's what we should be worried about, not worried about going against other people. Because people always planning stuff, it never comes to pass. You're going to be afraid of somebody, be afraid of going against God. Okay, that's back in Acts chapter 23, verse 22 to 24.
So the commander let the young men depart and commanded him.
Which young man are we talking about? Paul's nephew. Paul's nephew that went to the commander to say, they're planning on killing Paul. So he listened to it, and then he let the young man depart and commanded him.
Tell no one that you have revealed these things to me. And he called for 2 centurions, saying, prepare 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen, and 200 spearmen to go to Caesarea at the 3rd hour of the night.
3rd hour of the night. Okay, so our days go from 12 to 12, right? Their days go from 6 to 6. Because once it's sundown, the day's over for them. So that's when the day starts over. Our day starts over at midnight.
So they start taking time, 3 hours.
Right. Their day starts over at 6. So when their new day starts at 6 o'clock. You know how our new day starts at midnight?
Yeah.
Their new day starts at 6. So when they say the 3rd hour, what time is it?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. Give people a chance to think. You quick people, you. Right. So if their new day starts at 6, then when this is the 3rd hour, they're saying it at 9 o'clock. So at 9 o'clock at night, he sent 200 horsemen and spearmen and all these people to go to Paul. Because the 40 guys, they're waiting to grab Paul. And so suddenly 200 people show up. 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen, 200 spearmen, and they went and got Paul. Go ahead, verse 24.
And provide mounts to set Paul on and bring him safely to Felix the governor. Then the soldiers, as they commanded, took Paul.
So they had decided, we will not eat or sleep until we kill Paul. This is our vow. We're going to take him down. But the Bible says you can't touch God or God's anointed. If you are doing what God told you to do, people can say all sorts of stuff. They can plan all sorts of stuff against you. It will not work. It can look bad for a long time. It's still not going to work because God has a plan. So you think, oh man, everything's all messed up. And look what they did. And they fired me from my job. Well, God had a better job for you. It's okay. Nobody can mess up what God has for you. We think that because we put our faith in somebody else, and when they don't come through, we think we're messed up, right? We think, oh man, how's that going to work now? Because I was dependent on so-and-so. Well, we should have been dependent on God. We thought that that's how God was going to do it. But even when that person doesn't come through, even when that job doesn't happen, even when this doesn't happen, that in no way stops God's plan. God already has a plan. We just didn't understand his plan. That's why the Bible says, we'll make our plans and God will laugh. Yes.
I just believe that it's more of a, I just believe that it's more of a normal reaction because of the emotions.
I understand, but we have to not listen to our emotions.
No, I didn't say that. I'm saying that's what happens. The emotions override.
Yes, I know that they do that, and we have to not listen to our emotions. That's what we're trying to learn. So yes, it is a natural reaction to go.
I didn't say that. I'm just saying that.
Making a comment.
I'm making a comment that the emotions override the faith.
Right.
He was just saying, that's it.
Okay, so the emotions override the faith. So when that happens, I'm trying to say, here's what we need to do about it. It is natural to go, oh no, because we are upset about this. That's natural. That's what we do. That's what I'm describing. So I'm agreeing with you. That's natural. But we got to go above the natural to the supernatural. and not let our emotions dictate to us. We do get upset. But if we believe that God is in charge, when our emotions start to come up, we're going to have to say to ourselves, I'm not going to get upset about that. That did not mess me up. I'm not going to go crazy about that. We have to train ourselves to do that because God is in charge and no one person can mess us up. Yes, sir.
Is that the reason why we have to talk to God all the time?
Yes.
Keep him informed, act like he's our best friend.
Excellent. Right. Well, but that's what he's saying. We need to talk because there are people we'll call and talk to all the time. You won't believe what happened. If we could just train ourselves to talk to God like that all the time, then when something happened, our first response would be, Lord, look what they just did, and not, how dare you? I can't believe this. Because we get so upset about stuff. Let me call someone. Oh man, my boss just came in, or my wife just came in, or my husband, or my child just, and we make the circumstance too big, as though it's bigger than God. Again, when they got on the boat, and Jesus said, let's go to the other side, and then the storm came up, Jesus knew the storm was going to come up. It was to teach them, I'm bigger than the storm. When storms come up, I'm bigger than the storm. They were amazed. Like, oh, even the winds and the waves obey him. And God is like, yeah, the winds and the waves obey me. So don't worry about it. That person who has that plan against you, that person who's trying to come against you, that person who disappointed you, who did not come through, they're not bigger than God, and they can't mess up God's plan. Now, we're going to read the entire book of Esther. Esther chapter 2, verse 5, and verse 7a, 8, and then 10a. Now, Shushan is a city in Persia, and the Jews had been captured, and the king of Persia had taken over a whole big area, all the way from Ethiopia to India. He just taken over that whole area where today Iran is, and Iraq, and that whole Middle East area. And the Jews were among a bunch of different people that had been captured and ruled by the king of Persia. So someone start reading in verse 5.
In Shushan, the citadel, there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai, the son of Yair, the son of Shimi, the son of Kish, a Benjamite.
A Benjamite.
Yeah, small tribe.
So there's only 3 tribes that God is ever concerned about once they came out of Egypt. The Levites, the tribe of Judah, and the Benjamites. You will see them showing up all the time. We did not know that before. Like, oh, those were all Benjamites. Who else was a Benjamite?
Saul.
Paul was a Benjamite, and Saul. Saul, who became king, and they replaced him. Paul, who we've been just reading about, is a Benjamite. Esther is a Benjamite. And so there's only going to be 3 families that the Bible's ever concerned with, and we follow the line of the Benjamites. Okay, so Mordecai was a Benjamite, verse 7.
And Mordecai had brought up Hadassah, that is, Esther, his uncle's daughter. So it was when the king's command and decree were heard that Esther also was taken to the king's palace. Esther had not revealed her people or family, for Mordecai had charged her not to reveal it.
Okay, so here's what the king had said. The king threw a big banquet. The banquet lasted for 3 months. Then he had an extra banquet that only lasted for a couple weeks. And he invited his wife to come to the banquet, Vashti. And she said, no, I don't feel like it. And he gave her another chance. And she said, no, I don't think so. And he said, surprise, I have to kill you. Because you're disobeying the king. And if you get away with disobeying the king, everybody's going to think they can disobey the king. So you've had it, when your first day of school, when you're in high school, you had certain teachers who laid down the law, and you had certain teachers who didn't. The nice teachers who didn't lay down the law got taken advantage of eventually. Because when the kid acted up and they didn't do anything about it, the other kids went, oh, well, I can act up too. Right? And that teacher lost control of the classroom. You had teachers who could not control the classroom, and other teachers who could control it. Yes, sir.
So he killed his wife to prove his authority?
Yes. So if you don't, right away, when I went to teacher school, they said on the first day, you gotta just do your authority. So, first day of class, I said, I need everybody to be quiet. And the kid cleared his throat. I said, that's it! Get out! They're like, oh my God, we can't even clear our throats. This man is crazy. I didn't have any trouble from that class. You clear your throat too loud, he'll cut you. Right? So, but they told us to do that, right? Now I'm laughing to myself because, you know, but they don't know. They think he's crazy. Didn't have any problem. So he's like, I have to kill you because you defied me in front of everybody. So now I'm looking for a new wife. So he looks all around at all the different women and he sees Esther. And he picks Esther. Except he doesn't know that Esther is Jewish because he's got a bunch of people, bunch of different tribes and things that he had captured, right? Because he captured the whole area. So some are Ethiopian, some are Persian. He doesn't know that Esther is Jewish. So again, verse 10.
Esther had not revealed her people or family, for Mordecai had charged her not to reveal it.
So don't tell him you're Jewish. Don't tell him you're Jewish. Go on.
In those days, while Mordecai sat within the king's gate, two of the king's eunuchs, Bigthan and Teresh, doorkeepers, became furious and sought to lay hands on King
Ahasuerus. Ahasuerus. Yes, that's the Jewish version of Xerxes, Artaxerxes, Ahasuerus. Okay, so there's two eunuchs who are in the sitting at the king's gate, and Mordecai just happens to be sitting there. He overhears this conversation. These two eunuchs are planning on killing the king, but God happened to have Mordecai there. So Mordecai overhears the conversation, and then he goes and sends words to the king. These people are planning to kill you. So there are people planning to do dirt. God makes sure there's somebody who overhears that conversation and the right person knows. You don't have to worry about it. God hears everything. So Mordecai overhears the conversation. Verse 22.
So the matter became known to Mordecai, who told Queen Esther, and Esther informed the king in Mordecai's name.
Right, so he tells Esther, his niece. Esther tells the king, and says Mordecai said this. So they wrote it down in a book, Mordecai's name, and that was it. Mordecai did not get a reward. Mordecai did not get congratulation. He's still just sitting by the gate trying to get some business. Nothing happened. Nothing. You think, oh man, I did a good deed and nothing happened. I was not rewarded for it. But if you do things in secret, who rewards you openly? God rewards you openly later. It may not be when you want it, but God sees everything you do. So someone I'm related to says that when he's at work, he acts like there's always a camera on him. And he always does what he's supposed to do. Because he knows God is watching, right? And he always does it, even if there's not a camera, he just always does what he's supposed to do. Because God is watching, and he knows if he does the right thing, God will ultimately reward him for it, even nobody sees it. And we should drive like that. Oh, there are no police? I'm gonna go 70 in this 30-mile-an-hour zone. We should live like that. But we don't. If nobody sees, we go ahead and do whatever. He said, God sees. And I was always taught that God sees. I'm one of those little kids that was just really naive and believed whatever you told them. So if I came to church and they said, God is everywhere, I would think, okay, God is everywhere. So if I found $1, this is somebody's money, to this day, it makes me nervous. I go right away to somebody. Somebody left $1,000 right here. I'm telling you, if it was $100,000 I found on the ground, I'm giving it all to here, because God's not going to take this from me later. Does that make sense? Because God sees that. God knows that's not my money. And even if I could just put it in my pocket and walk away,
Did he give it to you?
no. Now, if I go and turn it in, this has happened. Here, somebody dropped his $50 bill. Well, you take it. No, I have fought with people. Fine. If they're gonna, okay,
Yeah, but
I guess
like-
that's God did.
Just like you said, maybe it was set there for you to find.
Right, but first I do the right thing. First you do the right thing, which is to find out who belongs, because that was somebody's.
Right.
And when you drop your $50 bill, you're gonna wish somebody turned it in. You didn't go, well, I'm glad that's gone. Glad that money's out of my pocket. So you do the right thing first. I've argued with cashiers. You gave me too much change. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. You gave me no, I don't want the money because I don't want my tire to blow up and So no. So God sees everything. Act like there's always a camera on you. So these people, they're plotting. I'm gonna get the king. Look, Mordecai overheard it. Mordecai turned them in. Mordecai didn't get any reward for it, but he did the right thing. But don't worry, God sees what you're doing. Eventually you get rewarded. Okay, so.
Well, we shouldn't look for rewards all the time either.
You're not doing it to get the reward.
Yeah, we shouldn't look for that.
Right, you're doing it because it's the right thing.
Right.
But it's just how God is. Like if you give, the Bible says God's gonna give back to you in some way. You don't know what it is. But God will give back to you because that's his rule. I'm not doing it, you're not giving to get.
Man-wise, we look for rewards, but God-wise, it's gonna.
We're just doing it because we're supposed to.
Yeah.
But I'm just informing you, God's still gonna reward you. Sorry, that's what he's gonna do. But we're not doing it to get a reward.
Right,
He said
exactly.
God's gonna come up with the way to do it.
Right.
God's gonna figure out. Because we always think, well, if I give this $50, I'm gonna get $100 back. No, if you give this $50, you might get a friend that you hadn't heard about. You might get a ride somewhere. God's gonna reward you in some way.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so Esther chapter 3, verse 1 and 2. We're now in chapter 3 and 5 and 6.
Esther.
After these things,
After these things, go ahead.
Somebody else?
Joy,
After these things, King
Ahasuerus,
Ahasuerus promoted
Haman.
Haman, but Mordecai would not bow or pay homage.
So Haman is an evil guy. Ahasuerus didn't know that. He promoted him, and now everybody's supposed to bow down to him. But Mordecai's like, I'm not bowing down to you. You're evil. I only bow down to God. Go on.
When Haman saw that Mordecai did not bow or pay him homage, Haman was filled with wrath, but he disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone. Instead, Haman sought to destroy all the Jews.
So Haman says, since you're doing this to me, I'm going to destroy all the Jews. I'm going to figure out a way. So here's a plot he's got. I'm going to figure out a way to get all of Jews as payback to what this one person did. Okay, so going on, verse 8 and 9.
Then Haman said to King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people, and they do not keep the king's law. If it pleases the king, let a decree be written that they be destroyed.
So the king did not know, but the Jews, and he didn't know which people. Haman just said, there's a certain people. And they eat when they want to, and they pray when they want to. And we've decreed that you got to pray at this time, you got to eat at this time. And here's their law. But they do what they do their own thing. And so let's have a decree that we should be, and the king's like, yeah, that makes sense, because he's not paying attention. He's not paying attention. So, sure enough, Haman puts out a decree and declares all the Jews are going to be killed, and he gives them a certain date, like on May 13th. All the Jews are going to be killed. And so Mordecai obviously is upset about it, and they're all upset. Esther chapter 4, verse 1a.
When Mordecai learned all that had happened, he tore his clothes and put on a sackcloth and ashes.
Go ahead.
Okay. Then Esther gave him a command concerning Mordecai to learn what and why this was.
So that's a Jewish tradition. When you're upset, when there's some tragedy has happened, you tear your clothes and you rub ashes and you're showing outwardly the inward pain. That's just their tradition. So, and different cultures respond in different ways.
Right.
At funerals, sometimes people are very demonstrative at funerals. I remember being at a funeral at church, and the daughter tried to climb into the casket where her father was. Because, you know, and that's her just showing, I'm that upset that he's leaving. I'm going to get in, you know. And so we have different ways when we were upset of showing how upset we are. Okay, so Esther walks by and she sees Mordecai all covered with ashes, and she wants to know what is wrong, what's up with Mordecai, why is he covered with it? Somebody find out. And Mordecai tells her everything that's going on. He says to Esther, you need to go to the king and tell him about this decree, and that he's, you know, that Haman's about to kill all the Jews, and that he's agreed to it. Now, Esther cannot do this. Here's why. Esther chapter 4, verse 11.
Any man or woman who goes into the inner court to the king who has not been called, he has but one law, put all to death, except the one whom the king holds out the golden scepter.
So, if you come into my court and invade my space, then you must die. Some of you live like that. Larry has that sign above his office. Because he doesn't want to be bothered. So if you come into my space and I haven't asked you to come in, then I have to kill you. So this is not a new thing. And so Esther's like, if I go to him and he hasn't called, unless I give you the scepter, if I like you, and you just never know. People approach the king, is it okay? Is it all right? He goes, no. Death. You just don't know. If you're going to be the one, if he says, okay, and hands you the scepter, then you can approach him. But you can only approach him if he calls you. If you come on your own, then he's going to kill you. Yes, sir.
Is she married to the queen?
Yes, they're married. That's his queen. But he still didn't want to see her.
Oh,
Have you not been married?
Some husband.
So, yeah, so you don't come to me unless I call you. That's what the king is saying. You don't come, I didn't ask, I did not call you. Unless I like you, if I'm in the right mood, I'll give you my scepter and it's okay. But otherwise, you have to be killed. Yes, sir.
Who gave this man the authority or the power to just kill somebody if he don't call? I might want to ask you something and you're going to kill me?
Right. The people did. The people did. Well, right. You would say, let me go live in a different kingdom. That's what you would say.
Kill him.
Yes.
Well, they tried. The eunuchs tried, right? The eunuchs plotted against him, but they got found out by Mordecai. So the people accepted him. And there's a, you know, we put people in power and sometimes they're crazy.
Oh my God.
But we put, you know, you put them in power, so the people have given him this authority to do whatever he wants. And now it's too late because his guards do whatever he says. So when they come in and complain, I don't think you should do that. Kill him. Boom. And that right away stops people from complaining.
Can I ask another question?
Yes, sir.
What if me and my tribe, my army,
Yes.
with my comrade, what if we decided we don't like what he's doing and we just all let's kill him and kill him?
Right. You just have to, there has to be more of you than the people who are following him. Unfortunately, he kept winning all these wars. So he's controlling this biggest area. This king had more area than any king in history. People kept coming against him, but he would win. And now he owned them. And then somebody else would come against him, and he would win, and now he owned those people. And they would just get in line, because once you lose, well, he won. I don't want to keep getting killed. It hurts when you keep getting killed. I've been killed several times. So you don't want to keep losing, so people give up, and they just let him do what he wants. So Esther's like, I can't go and tell him, because he hasn't called me to do this. So, again, the second part of verse 11.
Yet I myself have not been called to go into the king these 30 days.
So it's been 30 days she's been waiting to get in. And he hasn't called her yet, so she has to wait. Like, I can't just go in there because unless he hands me the scepter, and I don't know if he's going to be in that mood. He did just kill his first wife. So Esther's like, I'm not sure if I should do this. But here's what Mordecai says in verse 14.
For if you remain completely silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place. But you and your father's house will perish.
So Mordecai saying, you shouldn't be afraid to do this thing. If you don't do it, don't worry. If you don't do it, this is very important. God will still save us. He's just going to use somebody else. Mordecai saying to Esther, okay, if you don't go to the king, I'm not worried. God will use somebody else. But you will perish because you were disobedient. Does that make sense? Because God wants you to do this. You're the only one. You're his queen, Esther. You're the only one that has the power to do this. But if you don't, God will find somebody else. I'm not worried about it. But you and your family will perish. Okay, so go on. Yeah, but who knows? So this is a very famous verse. You may have been called into the kingdom for such as this may be this may be your purpose. And we're all looking for our purpose. Why has God called me? What am I supposed to do? This may be the thing you're supposed to do. This may be the whole reason why all of this happened. And we got to investigate that. Because when times are really bad and we're scared to move and should I make this choice? And well, yeah, that may be the very reason all this is happening. So because you're supposed to step into your purpose right now. And so she had to pray about that, think about that. Well, yeah, maybe that is why I'm in this position. I know I'm afraid of what might happen to me, but if I don't move, look what will happen to everybody else. So maybe this is why God has called me. So she decided to go. And she, so here it says in Esther chapter 5, we're already in verse 5. We got through 5 chapters of Esther. We're doing good. Verse 1 through 2.
Now it happened on the third day that Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the king's palace across from the king's house, while the king sat on his royal throne in the royal house, facing the entrance of the house.
So she put on her robes. She's in her house. He's sitting on his throne, facing the house. And she's going to take a chance and step out. Again, if you come into my space and I don't like you, I reserve the right to kill you. Right. So, okay, she's going to take a chance. Maybe this is what God has called me to do. And there are times we're just afraid to do what God has called us to do. We're like, but what if God has called you to do it, it will work out. So go ahead and say that thing to that person. Go ahead and do that thing. If God has called you to do it, it will work out. Okay, so it was, verse 2.
So it was, when the king saw Queen Esther standing in the court, that she found favor in his sight. Yes. And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand.
So the Bible says, if a man makes his ways pleasing before the Lord, then God will turn the heart of the king. If you are doing what you are supposed to do, if you're doing what you're supposed to do, God will change your boss's heart. He'll change this person's heart. He'll change that person's heart. If you are doing what God told you to do, then when you go to that boss, ask for that raise. When you go to this place, when you go to that person who rejected you the first, God will change their heart. We're thinking, well, I can't go to that person because last time, a year ago, they cussed me out. It's like, no, you've been doing what I told you to do. Go again to that person. God's going to change it. God's going to change it. God will change that person's heart. He's saying that's his responsibility. Our responsibility is to do what God has told us to do. God's responsibility is to move on somebody's heart and change them. So sure enough, she went in and the king gave the scepter and she was cool and she told them what was going on. Okay. So he says to Queen, what do you want, Queen Esther? He says, I want to throw a banquet. She still hasn't told him about Haman and Mordecai and all that stuff. He says, I'm going to throw a banquet and I'm going to invite you and I'm going to invite Haman. So when Haman hears this, like, he's like, yes, I've been invited to a royal banquet. This is fantastic. Everybody loves me. He's doing wrong.
It's 50 cubits.
But he's thinking that he's being rewarded for it. So God will let the evil people get away with their wrong for a time period, but he's just about to strike, right? So he'll let it for a time period, then he's going to get you. We get upset when we see the evil people prospering. Like, man, they're doing wrong stuff. And so we get tempted to want to do what they're doing. So there are drug dealers and pimps and stuff in certain neighborhoods that for a while are getting away with stuff, and little kids see that and think, well, God's not punishing them. He's about to. He's about to. You still have to do what you're supposed to do.
No, I was scratching my face.
Okay. So he invites Haman. She invites Haman and the king, and I'm going to throw a banquet just for you two. Haman's excited. So here's what Haman tells his wife, in Esther chapter 5, verse 12 to 14.
Moreover, Haman said, besides, Queen Esther invited no one but me to come in with the king to the banquet that she prepared. And tomorrow I am invited.
I'm again invited.
I am again invited by her, along with the king.
So the banquet was 2 days. So they went for 1 day, had a great time, and says, and tomorrow I get to go again, right? But his only thing that was frustrating him is that Mordecai wasn't dead yet. So in verse 13, he tells his wife,
Yet all this avails me nothing. So long as I see Mordecai, the Jew, sitting at the king's gate.
Now he doesn't know that Esther's Jewish. He just thinks it's just Mordecai. Go on.
Then his wife Zeresh and all his friends said to him, let a gallows be made, 50 cubits high, and in the morning suggest to the king that Mordecai be hanged.
Right. It says, if Mordecai's bothering you, build a gallows, and then when you get to, so we won't even wait for that date, because he had set a date for all the Jews to be massacred. He said, don't even wait. His wife said, something just moved on her heart. You know what would be really good? Build a gallows, and then suggest, why don't we just hang Mordecai in this gallows? Because you're going to be at the banquet with him and Esther, and that'll be the perfect time. She doesn't even know why she suggested this. Just something moved on her. This would be the perfect thing to do, and it was. There are people who are preparing the perfect trap for you, and God's going to snare them in it.
Yes, sir.
So you don't have to worry about it. There are people plotting, and people say, oh, we're going to get this. They're going to be trapped in their own snare. Yes, sir.
Doesn't that remind you of when the people in Egypt and Pharaoh said he was going to kill the
Firstborn. Right.
And then it was the firstborn of Egypt that was killed.
Exactly. So, but if we believe that, we wouldn't get so upset all the time. Because that's our problem. Somebody plans something against us, we go, oh man, and we don't think, you know what, God's going to take care of that. I don't have to be as worried. There's too many things that we are worried about. There's too many people we want to get them back. There are too many people we're afraid of winning, and I'm losing. No, you're not. God is watching everything. Yes, sir.
I think one of the things that's in there, sometimes we think that if God had put people in places to defend or to help or to assist, or prompt to do something like Esther, we think that we don't trust them.
Right.
On the move of God. People say, oh, I'm with you. And you say, okay, God's going to use this person to help do what he's going to do, right? To defend you or protect you. I think we have a lack of confidence because we haven't seen God. And we believe, but it's kind of hard to say that when you say, well, I know that one is supposed to be the one here with me, but then the one just like not willing to do it. So I think
Right.
that's where our problem is.
And well, of course, our problem is we think we know who's supposed to do what.
Right. Sometimes
And we don't know, you never know who God has in a certain place. You know, so we get frustrated when we don't see this thing happen a certain way. Yes, sir.
Yeah, but the danger of that, it was crazy. I seen a movie last night on Netflix about a girl. She at the time
machine.
Yeah.
Cocktail time machine.
Crazy, man.
He's back
God
in
was word
with the brother. Yeah.
brother got killed by a police officer.
Okay.
So she tried to go back in time.
I see it yesterday.
And save her brother. That's what
Right.
What happened with the chain of events was set in motion. She saved her brother, but it also took the life of her best friend.
Right.
Then she rolled it back again and the brother sacrificed himself.
To try to change things back to normal.
Right.
Like they didn't change. It's good.
Right.
So in other words, what you're saying is it doesn't matter because God's will is going to be done.
Yeah.
Right. Nobody can, you cannot thwart God's will. They said that several times in the book of Acts, where Gamaliel kept saying, don't worry. If this is not God's plan, it's going to fail. And if it is God's plan, you cannot stop it.
Right.
You cannot stop it. But we just don't know. We don't know who God has in place, who's going to come to our side, come to our aid. And so when we see that, when the person we think is supposed to help us is not, we get upset. But you don't know who God has planted where, who's saying what that you don't know about.
I'm thinking about David. Remember David was hiding from Saul?
Uh-huh.
And how God used the spider to put a web in front of the cave, the mouth, I mean the cave, the mouth of the cave. And I was just thinking that he could take the smallest things to make a difference.
Exactly.
Because that web being on the mouth of the cave, and so when Saul and men were looking for them, he said, we can't be in there because the web.
Because that web's fit, right. Yeah, so we don't know, you don't know what God's going to use. So you have to trust God. We just have to learn better to trust God. And like he said, we've got to talk to him all the time. Let's keep talking to God. Yes, sir.
So we, finance, we can't put God in a box.
Right.
And we should have an open mind to God because God can do anything. He's all powerful.
Yeah.
Right. So, and again, we say really good things in Sunday school. So there's the Sunday school us who says, yes, God can do it anything. God's all powerful. But I'm talking about the Monday through Saturday us. So why do we get so upset about stuff? Why do we get so frustrated? Because we don't believe. So it's easy to say it in Sunday school. You've got to take it. You have to practice it. You have to continually do it. And you have to say, I'm going to get up in the morning, and you have to make your flesh. I'm going to talk to God in the morning. I'm talking to him at 10 o'clock. I'm going to talk to him at noon. I'm talking to him at 2 o'clock. I'm just going to keep talking to him and remind myself he's my source. He's got a plan. When this person says something crazy, I don't have to let that make me all upset. They can't get me if God won't let them. So we have got to change our thinking, but it takes practice. It keeps constantly reminding ourselves that God is in control. That God is in control. We're used to handling things a certain way. Okay, so suddenly Haman's wife says, I got this great idea. You should make a gallows. And tomorrow, make sure you bring that up to the king. Okay, Esther chapter 6, verse 1 through, and then 3 through 4.
That night the king could not sleep. So one was commanded to bring the book of the records of the Chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthan and Teresh.
Right, so he couldn't sleep. God would not let him sleep. This is not a God-fearing man, but God's over everybody. So God will trouble the wicked. And so he couldn't sleep, and something made him get up, and he checked the record, and he looked up, and he realized it was Mordecai. Mordecai was the guy who had saved his life when those two people had come and were plotting to kill him. Mordecai had saved his life. So he went, you know what? I don't think we ever rewarded Mordecai. Now, it's been a while since Mordecai did this. So Mordecai did his good deed, and in his mind, nothing came of it. But God does not forget. God is watching. That's why we just have to do the good stuff that we're supposed to do. You just got to do it. God will ultimately reward you in a way that will surprise you. But he sees everything. So king got up, he checks the record, then he goes to Haman. So verse 3.
Then the king said, what honor dignity has been bestowed on Mordecai for this? And the king's servant who attended him said, nothing has been done for him. So the king said, who is in the court? Now Haman had just entered the outer court of the king's palace to suggest that the monk of the king hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared.
So two things going on. He said, whatever happened? Did Mordecai get rewarded for this? ever? And he said, no, Mordecai never got. Then he suddenly hears a sound, and it's, 6 in the morning or whatever, and Haman's in the court building a gallows. Who's out in the court doing that? And Haman had just come in at his wife's suggestion, yeah, I'm gonna build this gallows, and that's gonna, And so he calls Haman in, hey Haman, come in here. And he asked him a question. So verse 6.
So Haman came in, and the king asked him, what shall be done for the man whom the king delights to honor?
So he said, I want to honor somebody. What should you do for that sort of person? So of course Haman's like, oh, he's about to honor me. I'm so happy. Everything I'm doing is just right on. Okay, verse go on.
Now Haman thought in his heart, whom would the king delight to honor more than me? And Haman answered the king, for the man whom the king delights to honor, let a royal robe be brought,
Which the king has worn.
which the king has worn.
Right. And then he goes on to list a bunch of things. Put a ring on his finger and then give him money, and because he thinks he's talking about him. Haman's doing evil and thinks he's being rewarded for it. There are plenty of evil people who think they're being rewarded for it, and God is just setting them up for the okie doke.
Yes.
For the trap. I get that. My nephew.
Oh, you got it, okay, though?
He teaches me all the hip, cool phrases. That's right.
Okie dokie. That's an old phrase.
I know. Well, I'm old.
Yeah, it's up to date.
So he just setting them up, right? But Haman thinks that he's about to, and there's a lot of wicked people who think that what they are doing is prospering, and there's a lot of good people who think what they're doing is not working. I'm trying to do good and do what's right, and they're not cooperating. I'm trying to do the right thing. And you just have to be patient. God is watching. He is going to reward you. He's going to do it in his timing. So the thing that you think, oh man,